Okay, finally outside. We have been inside getting some dinner prep done and getting our bread made for the week. And so outside now, I'm gonna get some chores done. Hey guys, get these guys some water. It is almost time to get them out of this little brooder box. The ducks and the geese are getting nice and big. And so last week I mentioned that we got these guys to help with some gardening tasks. So running them through the garden in the evening times for about an hour just to help keep down some of our pest load. One of mine and Jacob's goals for the year is to try to work smarter, not harder. I think sometimes when you kind of have a good work ethic, or you have that homesteading spirit, or whatever you want to call it, if you like to do things for yourself, then sometimes you can tend to just overwork yourself, and a lot of that is probably personality based as well. But we're trying to just do some things this year that lighten the load a little bit. Jacob works a full-time job and we're homeschooling our children. And so all of that means that, you know, every piece of the pie is taken in your life. And so our goal is to just try to be efficient in things, try to, you know, snip things away that aren't necessary. And so hopefully these guys will make my life a little bit easier with just our organic gardening. If not, then we'll just find these guys some new homes, but worth the experiment. Okay, so in that vein of things, trying to just create space in our life for rest and time with our kids where we can just enjoy outside of just the daily tasks and the long project lists is we have decommissioned our chicken tractor. And so for like the first 4 years of us owning this piece of property, we wheeled these chickens around the property with some poultry netting from Premier One Fencing. We wheeled the guys around just spreading poop and just fertilizing the property. And while that was really great and helped with soil fertility throughout the property, allowed our chickens to be free range and to be on fresh grass all the time, there was a lot of input on Jacob's end and my end to move this every single week. And then sometimes in the summer, with just our dry Texas heat, there wasn't a lot of grass. And so some weeks we were moving them 2 times a week just to make sure that they were on fresh grass. And while that worked great, again, it just took a lot of our time. And so we made the decision this winter to decommission this thing and put the chickens in a more stationary location. And I'm really excited about what we've decided to do with them. So let me walk you over here to the garden and I'll show you what the plan is. Okay, I'm up here at the garden, and as you can tell, we've got a new stationary chicken house right here at the back of the garden. Still a little bit of a work in progress, but the chickens are housed here. We're still using some of our Premier One netting up right now just to keep them in and secure. But in the vein of trying to work smarter and not harder, and to use our chickens as a tool to help us. So not only do they provide us with fresh eggs, but thinking of a way that we could use those chickens in the garden to help make life easier. So we garden here on top of a really sunny hill. We're surrounded by a lot of pasture. Most of the area around the garden is covered with coastal Bermuda grass, which can be an absolute nightmare to keep out of the garden. Since we do a no-dig type gardening or a no-till type gardening system, we don't till the ground every single year to prepare new beds. We came in on the first year and laid out cardboard and then put in compost beds and mulch paths. While that system works really great in most of the garden, in the central areas of the garden, the perimeters of the garden and the edges of the garden can just be a complete nightmare to keep up with. Bermuda grass sends out runners, and they will travel several feet before you even know it's there, and then they will come up into the garden. So I have spent many hours digging up grass in the edges of the garden to try to keep that grass from coming into our beds. And it's just not something I want to spend my time on. And so the idea is to let the chickens do that work for us. I think I told you guys last week we're getting ready to fence our garden. So in that fencing project, we're going to create almost like a chicken run around the garden to allow the chickens to beat down the edges, beat down the path, eat the grass on 3 sides of the garden, and that will completely cut down, hopefully, on all the grass seeping its way into the garden edges. Also, in fencing the garden will be secure from critters, rabbits, and other things that want to get in and eat our nice food. And it will also do some other things for us. It will keep the garden secure from the chickens. So we can allow them to free range during the day on other parts of the property, but the fencing will keep them out of the garden. And then on days when we just want to keep the chickens up, they're there just doing their job, working their way around the edges of the garden, keeping the grass from working its way into the garden. Okay, so the chickens have been in this area for a couple of weeks now. The plan is along the back side of the garden to give them a pretty wide run here. I think this is about 11 feet or so. You can tell the chickens have already done a great job of just beating this down. I used to have a lot of Bermuda grass in this area that worked its way down into the garden, and last year I just pulled and pulled and pulled on grass and thought, this is just a waste of my time. But we're gonna horseshoe them. We'll give them a skinnier run down the north side and this south side of the garden, probably about 3 or 4 feet wide there. And then the front of the garden will just have one fence across it. We won't run them across the front. But again, just super excited that we're gonna use the animals that we already have to do the work for us here in the garden. Okay, and one of the other ways that we are, woo, that's a red wasp. Super not interested in getting stung by a red wasp. So another way we're trying to make life easier here in the garden and on our homestead is getting rid of all of the sides on our no-dig beds. So when we put our beds in the first year, we used just some old 2x6s that we had, and we built just some rectangular frames to fill the soil in. We were given some free stone, and we even brought in just some native rock that was here on our property, some native iron ore, and created edging around the beds. Now, while that looks beautiful and gives nice definition to everything, it really turned out to be a nightmare and to be completely inefficient for us. We have about 4-foot wide beds with around 2-foot paths between the beds, and anytime I'm bringing in a wheelbarrow to, say, put in some fresh compost in the bed, or to remulch the paths, or just when we're clearing out beds like at the end of the season and we're trying to bring a wheelbarrow or a wagon into the garden, inevitably they would always get stuck on the rocks and the stones and the 2x6 edging, and it would just make it really difficult to just bring our tools and equipment in and out of the garden. So over the weekend, we got all of the wood sides out of the bed. We got about half of the rocks out of the bed, but I'm really excited for just being a little more efficient in the garden this year and just making life easier, removing the things that just don't help us in our daily lives. Another thing that the edging really did to harm us in the garden was it was a great place for ants to create homes. So I think almost every wood bed that we pulled out had a fire ant bed in the edging, and I would say probably half of the stone edged beds that I've pulled out have had fire ant colonies in the edge of that. And so nobody wants to fight fire ants either. And so one of the fun things about gardening is you're always learning new things. You're learning what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and you just shift and make changes and make things better along the way. Thank you so much for joining me today, for hopefully maybe learning from some of the, not really mistakes, but some of the things that we have done that made our life harder in some ways. Our goal is to never get burned out by the things that we enjoy. We enjoy gardening, we enjoy our chickens, we enjoy doing projects here on our land and on our homestead. We're always dreaming about new things that we can do, but the goal is to not get burnt out by those things, to enjoy them, to use those things to enrich our lives. So any way that we can make things more efficient or make things easier on ourselves, put things in place that help us to create space for rest and relaxation and time with our family is part of the ultimate goal.